Roei, thanks so much for coming on the Sales and Sports podcast. Firstly, who are you? And would love to hear how you broke into entrepreneurship.
Yeah, of course. And Jack, big thank you for hosting me here. So I guess I started working with technology from a pretty young age, originally just out of interest, trying to build stuff in the bedroom, hardware, trying to build computers, was getting involved with the very, very early days of social media, just understanding growth, understanding, content, creating digital content. Was terrible at building computers. So I stopped with that and just started focusing mainly on software. And then, through the various sort of entrepreneurial journeys of a teenager at the time, was running under 16 events, under 18 events, all the sorts of things that we used to do to try and make money here and there. But when I was studying my master's down in London is really when I started to build out my first real tech business. And that was actually initially to support the events that I was running and the trips that I was running. So we were running trips from Nottingham to Amsterdam, from Nottingham to Old Trafford, just doing various things. And we realized early days of Facebook, sort of 2011 or just when, Facebook was becoming a bit more of a marketing powerhouse in that way, how could we start building online content to support what we were doing? So we started building tools for students to run blogs online, run video content, podcast content online. And we rolled out about 8 or 9 different universities, a lot of fun, but marketers didn't, or advertisers didn't care about the student market. Students didn't want to spend money. Nothing's changed there. So we pivoted to online sports, really. So we wound that business down, and then we started with Real Sport in 2012, 2013, which was essentially helping sports fans and gaming fans create videos, podcasts, other types of content, giving them tools to optimize that content for social. And we just got really fortunate with that. It was a time where sports journalism was kicking back off on Twitter in a big way. And just after Twitch had launched, big gaming platform, and really went from there.
Amazing. And how was it, I guess, starting a business from scratch? And were you doing a lot of the sales, right? So I think a lot of early stage founders have to do, carry the bag and do the sort of outreach and I guess run everything from the commercial side of things. So, talk me through that process. And I guess were you taught sales, or was it something that you sort of learned yourself?
Yeah, I think being a founder is being, the head of sales across everything, because realistically, you're selling to employees to come join you. You're selling the vision, you're selling equity to investors when you're raising money. And then, of course, you're making sales in terms of selling your product. So I think the main job of a founder is to sell. And you're selling to everyone. You're selling the vision, the dream, the passion, all of that. So I think founder-led sales and being a founder who can sell is normally the biggest determinant, in my perspective, of whether a business will succeed or not. Because if you can't convince talent to join you and give you the best years of their lives, you're not going to be able to go far. And therefore, actually convincing someone to part with cash for a product that you've built, which should be solving them a problem, should be much easier than selling to employees and selling to talent in that way. So I certainly think sales is the key thing for any founder. In terms of my journey with sales, it very much started with that, because we were a bootstrap company. We were really lucky to get a space under a Papa John's, in Northwest London, in the basement under Papa John's, no windows. Still happened to be freezing somehow. I don't know why, with no windows. And we were pitching world-class talent to come and join us in the basement under the Papa John's. And that's the first real sale that you make, I think, is getting people to come alongside you, for that journey, which is great. But then I think, realistically, even with the best salespeople, they want to follow a basic playbook or build on a basic playbook. And I think realistically, if you as a founder can't sell to early customers, there's something deeply wrong with the value proposition. There's something deeply wrong with the offering, because you're the one with the most passion. You're the one who's got the existential dread and threat of, if this product doesn't sell, I'm done. Yeah. So I think if you can't make that sale early on, you can't expect a sales leader to come in and develop something in that way. So I think the founder-led sale is key.
Got it. And in terms of trying to get people on board, especially early stage in any business, how did you find the balance of not overselling and overpromising in that role, but also trying to find great people to come on board? And what kind of traits and skills would you look for? Because a lot of the listeners will be thinking about getting into the tech space, specifically down commercial roles. So what kind of characteristics, traits would you look for as an early stage founder? But how do you find that balance early on of not over promising or overselling the role, right?
Yeah, well, I think that the beauty of the earliest roles is it's almost difficult to oversell, because with that early role, it's like, well, how big do you want to go? What's your future in this business? Like, where do you want to take this? You're essentially a co-founder. If you're one of the first 5 people into a business, you're essentially a co-founder. So I think it's the right type of mindset, the right type of mentality to be able to say, blank canvas, what should we paint? I think is an incredible opportunity. So I think it's difficult to oversell how amazing an early, role could be if you've got the right ambition. If you're trying to build a lifestyle business where actually, this is more about, we're going to get to X level and that's going to be great and it's going to fund my lifestyle as a founder and it's going to be that, that's one thing, and probably that is very, very different. But if you're going for big venture business, international expansion, diversifying product stream, being the first person in, to head up a new product, like all of these things, I think are so exciting, right? So I think it's difficult to oversell that, but where you have to be hyper realistic is what are the realities of joining a very, very early stage startup. Very little job security, very, very little in terms of structure and framework, all of those things. So I think as long as you're realistic about the requirements of working in an early stage startup, I don't think you can undersell the potential upside.
Yeah, amazing. And what kind of traits would you look for any individuals you're looking to bring onto a team, but specifically if it's someone who's a little bit younger, maybe hasn't had a office job before? What kind of traits, if you're interviewing, folk, I'm not sure if you're still a part of the interview process at your business, but what are you looking for in any person when they come and interview or have a first conversation with yourself?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I would say it also changes massively based on the stages of a business. I think we all know we start with generalists, then we're going to specialist, and I think there's a third level, which is then experience as well. So I think depending on where you are in the startup journey, the requirements for that hire are going to look a bit different. I would say from the first stage, maybe it's easier to break it down in that way. So when you're at generalist stage where everyone's going to be doing lots of different things, you're really looking for someone, it's a mindset thing, it's grit, it's determination, how much they want it, how much they're willing to do the hours and fight to make things work, and be willing to say, right, I'm going all in on something, it doesn't work, pivot something else, and not take a demoralization from that, and not be dragged down inevitable failures that are going to happen in the early part of a startup. So I think that the first hire is a total mindset thing, and really how much does this person have that ambition? Do they have a growth mindset and the ability to see there will be lots of hurdles in the way, but those are just things to get past rather than failures in that way. Then when you're getting into specialists, really you want someone who has a clearly defined skill set. It might be in sales process, it might be as an SDR, it might be closing, whatever it might be, so that they have a very clear skill set, but also you want them to have been in my experience, be in the startup environment before. That sort of, let's say 10 to 50 hires. It's people who have understood what it means to be in a startup, understood what it means to be resourceful and not be able to rely on significant budget to make things happen, really be self-starting in that way, especially if it's in a sales environment, commercial environment. You're not relying on totally inbound lead gen at this stage. There's going to be a lot of prospecting. It's going to be a lot of building your own business, building your own book. So I think, again, you still need that hustle. And then as you get into later stages, obviously, organizations change, right? And I think the other key thing that I would say is, when you're a founder and you're making your first 5-10 hires, it's easy to hire for values and the sort of the morals and the ethos around how you operate in business, because it's ultimately a reflection of yourself. But let's say your initial hires are 5% different in terms of the values. Their hires are going to be 5%, and in 10 rounds of hiring time, you're not going to recognize your organization. And the closer you can become congruent in those values, the better it's going to get from a culture and hiring and scaling perspective. If your first set of hires are 20% different to you from the values, and their hires are 20% different, in 3 rounds of hiring, you're not going to recognize your organization.
Got it. And tell me about Connected and what you're doing at the moment. How is it sort of funding that business? So you went from a bootstrap business from, I guess, your real sport business. So your first entrepreneurial venture was bootstrapped. Tell me how different it is, raising capital, and just selfishly would love to know how that went. And I guess that's sales, isn't it? Reaching out to people and bringing them on board on that journey.
Yeah, 100%. So with Real Sport, I mean, we initially bootstrapped it when we hit around 75,000, 100,000 monthly active users. We then went to go on to raise capital because we had, validation from the market around that. So Real Sport grew to about 9 million monthly users. It was an amazing journey. We were acquired by a gaming company called Gfinity in 2018. And then off the back of that, we started investing in startups and advising startups. And with the companies I was investing in, I could see really clearly a strong positive correlation between specific behaviors startups are making and the outcomes they were having in terms of funding, performance, traction, growth. And those behaviors were fundamentally twofold. One was the quality and frequency of their investor and board reporting, and by extension, the strength of their investor relations. And the second was their ability to access expert networks. Neither of these things are rocket science by any means, but it was amazing to see how many businesses were basically forgetting these fundamentals in order to try and find the secret sauce, as we always do in startup land. But actually, these fundamental behaviors are almost, predicating success. Like that's how closely linked they are in terms of outcomes. So we became really passionate with Connected in developing technology that would make those two behaviors as frictionless, seamless, and accessible for everyone in the startup ecosystem. So the startups, the investors, and the advisors. So for behavior one, which is the investor reporting, we built technology that integrates with the business's open banking, accounting, and payment solution. So HSBC, Xero, and Stripe, for example. We ingest all of that transactional level data, and then we auto-calculate that reporting environment. So all those reports they should be giving to their investors, often they don't even know what to put in them, let alone how to calculate them. We're doing it automatically on their behalf, single sign-in, great, everything's done. They can share different levels of access with different types of users. So they might share everything with their board of directors and their lead VC. They might share less information with minority shareholders. And it gives investors real-time access and the ability to give real-time help as well. Things that no angel investor is investing in a company expecting the finished product. We know things go wrong. We know there are going to be issues along the way. So the ability to have transparency and data and structure at the heart of that relationship builds trust, allows for help, allows for better access. And that's why I think it's so closely linked to more funding, better outcomes, more success. And then for the second behavior, which is the accessing expert networks, we realized we could build a system to utilize this data for discovery. So for example, if your cost of acquisition is increasing or your revenue's dropping, great, here's a performance marketing expert, here's a sales expert, or your churn's increasing, here's a product expert. So we started building this out in 2019. We launched in November 2020, so about 3.5 years ago now. It's crazy to think it's gone that quick. We've raised which has been a really exciting journey. We've raised about 8 million in funding so far, launched that into the US back end of last year. And been a really exciting journey.
Wow. And I guess you invest as well, from what I've seen on LinkedIn, into other businesses. So that must have helped you going to raise capital. What do you look for when you're investing in businesses? And I guess what are tips that you'd give to people if they're raising capital from angels or VCs?
Yes, good question. I would say, so I invest typically pre-seed, seed, and I have invested in a couple Series A's. And I think the things that you're looking for at each of these stages is different. So, and I like to break it down into sort of team, revenue, and data. In a pre-seed environment, it's that order: team first, then the revenue, then the data. Who's the team? What do they do? Are these the right people to do this thing? Then revenue. If they have early revenue, amazing. I'm not expecting it, but if they do, that's great. And data, you basically have none. You're a pre-seed startup, right? There's nothing to talk about there. Then when you get to seed round, it flips. You're then looking at revenue, team, data. Okay, have they got early traction? Do they know how to monetize in the space? Can they get people to write checks? Can they get people to open the wallet? Then you've got the team, again, still incredibly important. Are they the right people to bring this forward? And then again, data, it's important, but you're not going to have a ton. And then for Series A, it flips completely. Data becomes the most important thing. Do these people understand how to scale their business? Do they understand levers? Do they understand their funnels? Do they understand their conversion? All of these things. Because then at Series A, it's like, right, let's pump it. Let's get it to that point. Then it's revenue. So obviously, their ability to have done this, or sorry, their track record in doing this. And then actually team becomes the least important Series A, interestingly.
Interesting, yeah. Yeah. And yourself in your business at the moment, what do you spend most of your time doing? Is it still selling? Is it operations? Is it, recruiting great people? What do you do on your day to day? And how do you manage obviously this is a sales and sports podcast. How do you manage your time in a day, and are there any crossovers between entrepreneurship and sports, or sales and sports, business and sports? Would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, of course. So in terms of how I spend my time, it's really varied. And obviously, whenever there's I'm chief, fire putter outer, right? I mean, that's
Nice.
the main thing that we do, of course. But obviously, managing teams, supporting on that side. We launched in the US in December, so that's really changed my time a bit more. Whereas in the UK, we really understood what we're doing, and it's not formulaic, but we're scaling at a level now. We're about 6 million ARR. We're getting to about 4,000 customers. We really understand that very, very well. But when we launched in the US, it's like, right, tear up everything you know. Okay, and start again. So now I'm a lot more involved again with sales, speaking to customers, speaking to partners, and it's much more tactical than strategic in the US now, which is great. And I'm builder, right? I'm founder. I love that part. So that's been really, really nice to get back onto the ground actually with a lot of the US stuff. But then as we go, it is more about hiring. It's about looking at big new opportunities. For example, we're now looking at whether we can start layering in debt financing as well as equity financing and reporting around that. So when we're looking at like big new opportunities, that's obviously a really exciting one. And then in terms of the overlap between sports and startups, it's massive, right? You know this better than I do. I think probably the best advice I got given, and my last business, Real Sport, was obviously we were working with the Premier League, the NBA, the NFL, so many, professional athletes and people involved with sports. Probably the best advice I got given was by a fringe player from the Houston Rockets back in 2017, because we were doing stuff to do with the playoffs at the time. And he said that, if a NBA season goes the full way, you're playing, it's like 115 games you might end up playing, even more now, like the play-in tournament they've got. So the whole thing is like, how do you manage not getting too high after wins and not getting too low after losses, because the next game's around the corner, right? And I think that is so similar to the startup journey, where it's like 1 minute that email comes in, it's like big partner unlocked, it's like amazing. Next minute comes in, it's like something's just dropped off. And it's, if you aren't in control of your emotions, if you can't weather that storm and ride that roller coaster and all the other terrible analogies that we use, your ability to keep on top of your mental health and your ability to manage and be there for people is just going to be destroyed. So it's how do you stay in the middle? I think that's similar to a busy sports schedule.
Good stuff. And are you up super early, sort of 5 a.m. club? Are you taking cold showers? Are you like exercising every day? Like what's your routine, I guess, to keep healthy and to keep that sort of balance?
Is a part of the human cult, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's funny, like when we started Connected, it was we launched our like horrible MVP 3 days before lockdown. So just at a time where it's so focus mode, like everything shut down. So I basically spent 2 years without leaving my laptop. And it was bad. It was really, really bad. Like, it was just like, I put on a ton of weight. I just didn't leave my laptop. Now, look, don't get me wrong, business was good for it. And it was what I felt I had to do at the time. But then coming to start of 2023, late 2022, I guess, it must have been around that time, I just flipped completely. I was like, if I don't look after myself at this point, like I'm going to fall over and the business is going to fall over and it just isn't going to be good. So I went super optimal ghost mode for like 5-6 months, where it was 5 a.m. cold shower, straight into. I was the cult, right? I was exactly that. I was fully there, 100%. I was fully there for 6 months, and I dropped a ton of weight. It was great, but do you know what? I realized that when you're doing the 5 a.m. wake up, 9 p.m. bedtime, super disciplined with everything, on top of being a founder, you're basically saying, I'm cutting out all social connection. I'm just cutting out any social connection. No friendship. I was single at that time. And it was like, cool, I can do this and I feel good, but I'm basically alone. I'm just totally alone at that time. So I decided to pull it back a little bit. And it was like, right, if life's about balance, doing beast mode 7 days a week just doesn't make sense. So I think, I think we all go through that stage, which is really appealing. And there might be times in life where we need to do that and really lock in. But I don't actually think it's sustainable doing that. And I think, trying to balance that with social connection. How do you balance being in bed at 9 p.m. every day with, going out with friends or doing something after work? Well, what about you? What are you like on that side?
Good point. I was going to ask you actually about next question I had lined up. I was just thinking about it was how do you balance, I guess, alcohol and entrepreneurship and going out? Because I think I listened to a podcast. You said you went sober or are sober.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, I try and get out at least once a day to do a 5K. I
Nice.
could say probably only get out 5 days out of those seven, but try and get out. I love saunas, so I go to
Mhm.
sauna after 5K. But yeah, I think for me, exercise is just so key to get out of the house and
Yeah.
just stay a bit sane, especially if you're working, 24/7. So yeah,
Yeah, totally.
yeah,
No, I think sauna's actually been like a bit of a revelation for me. Actually, for stress is
really
amazing.
good. Yeah,
Yeah,
really good, really
really
is.
good.
And
I'm
ice
trying.
bath. I do like an ice bath.
Nice. Do you know what? I've stopped that. I've actually stopped doing it, which is a
Mm.
shame because it is really like it is so good. Like there's very few things which make you feel as amazing as
Yeah,
post ice bath. But now that I'm traveling so much, I'm in and out the country all the time. Like I can't if I start packing my ice bath with me. I mean, then we've gone too far, right?
yeah, very keen, proper keen.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so yeah, are you teetotal? Do you still have a few drinks now and again, or what's your
So
vibe with that?
yeah, so when I went into that like ghost mode, 6 months didn't drink, didn't touch a thing, and was just like super, super locked in that way, and like to the point of, yeah, almost definitely to a fault. And but actually, it was a great reset. It was a great reset, especially after that Christmas period where there's an event every night, and you know what it's like with being a startup founder, like there's no upper limit to what you can give. The more you can network every night. You can do an investor dinner every night. Like you can go as far down that rabbit hole as you want to. So I
Mm,
think actually as a 6 month reset, it was incredible. And now my relationship with alcohol, with food, with all these things is so much better. So there was massive value in taking that 6 months out. And
yeah,
for example, I did it for a few months at the start of this year. I'm going to keep on doing those sorts of
yeah,
breaks.
like
And look,
stints. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. And look, in an ideal world, I wouldn't drink alcohol for sure
yeah.
because I don't know. Do you use any wearables? Do you are you on that?
I've got an Apple Watch. Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
So I'm not on the whoops yet, but
fine.
you can sort of see your sleep definitely makes a massive difference, right?
Exactly. And if like sleep is the fundamental pillar to, mental clarity, to physical health, to all those things, like it doesn't really match up. So, probably one day I will go back to, just not drinking at all. But for now, I think it's actually in a really good balance, which is important.
Epic. Well, yeah, that's pretty much everything I've got covered. I guess just to wrap, what advice would you give to someone who's thinking of breaking into tech or getting into the industry? Like, I guess bits of words of wisdom or starting any career, I guess, from yourself.
I guess probably the biggest trend, because rather than just giving like sort of cliche advice, the biggest trend that I'm seeing at the moment, and maybe you're seeing this as well, is almost like role stacking. So it's like the candidates that I'm seeing now, because the young talent coming through is so digital native. It's like, yeah, I do sales, but actually I can also do this. Or it's like, yeah, I do ops, but actually I understand data and, I can do content creation. So I think if you're looking to change career and you're looking to break into tech right now,
Yeah.
almost being, really, really strong at utilizing. I think AI is so key at this or
Mhm.
for this, utilizing different tools, utilizing different softwares to actually broaden your skill stack, I think is the key thing, because the amount of people that I'm seeing now, it's like, yeah, I do this, I do that, I can do that. And I think that's where it's all going. And as that technology becomes more proliferated and becomes better quality, then the skill stacking and almost like expertise stacking is going to get more and more common. So I would think about that.
Got it. And would you say traditional education, like a 4-year university degree, is needed if they're going to be part of your team? And do you think unis are training people on, these sort of skills at the moment?
I'd say they're definitely not, right? I'd say they're terrible at that. But for me, I think the value of going to university is beyond just getting a piece of paper. I think the
Yeah,
value of going to university for like, so when I was at university, I was running a student-run charity called Carnival up in Nottingham,
nice.
and which was great. And that was because ADHD brain, right? So it was like doing the degree wasn't enough. I was always trying to do extra things and run nights and do these things. We were running this charity. We raised 1.7 million for charity in a year for like amazing different charities. Like it was really, really incredible. And
Yeah,
and we were utilizing a network of 120 students working for free, trying to get them to do stuff for charity. right? Tough sell, right? It's
Yeah,
not an easy sell, you
definitely
know?
students. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And we obviously we didn't have any money to pay them. So
Mm,
like just learning those things, like how do you motivate people? How are you going
mm,
to like pitch to 100 people to do something for free for zero benefit to themselves, but just doing something good? And so all those things. So I think like with everything in life, you know, university will be what you make of it. If you go there and you study a course and you don't do anything else, but imagine now at this stage with where we sit right now having
mm.
3 years where actually you've only got 7 hours a week of work to do and the rest of your time you're basically paid to do whatever the hell you want. So
Yeah.
learning AI, doing all those things. So for me, like uni is it's like any period of life. Like, you know, yes, the education part might not be enough, but the time that you get basically free time. Like
Yeah.
you can come out of uni with whatever you want, right?
Yeah. It's what you make of it, I guess.
Yeah,
Staying
exactly.
active, what you make of it. Amazing. Well, thanks so much, Roy, for coming on. I think that's super, beneficial to myself, but also to all the listeners. So appreciate you coming on. Where's the best place for people to reach you? Would it be LinkedIn? Would it be Instagram? Like, are you on social media? What's the best place for people to find you if they want to reach out or follow?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram and LinkedIn, Roei Samuel, and then also on connected.com. No last E in connected. You can imagine how many times I've had to say that. But yeah.